Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the second episode of the Unplugged podcast. And joining me today is someone that has been pretty instrumental to a lot of cases to, I guess, a big part of my personal run. The one, the only, Mr. Anton Garcia, sir. How are you?
Wow, what a crisp intro that was. Thank you for having me. How are we doing, everybody? Thank you for having me here. Uh, it's 9 o'clock where I'm at in the world. I just recorded a promo, and what a better time for us to shoot the shit, if you will, than do it after recording a promo. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Not a problem. This is going to be a fun one because we've got a lot of stuff we can talk about. As far as like stuff involving us personally that we were both involved in, but there's also a lot of stuff that I don't know about.
Okay.
And one of the things I said whenever I started this was I want to kind of get to know more of the history of people and kind of find out like the humble beginnings or whatnot. So I'm going to start this with, I kind of want to talk about with you the life before the E-Fed world. What kind of stuff were you doing before this magical fucked up little world of ours came into your sights?
So in order for us to get to where we started all of this, let's go to the fact that I've been watching wrestling since 2006. I was born in 1999. I'm currently 23 years of age, and I've been watching wrestling since 2006. So I was 6 years old. I remember the very first match I ever saw was the main event of the last Raw of 2006. It was John Cena and DX facing off against Rated RKO and Maka. And it was. I remember very vividly because it was New Year's Eve as well. It was the last day before 2007, and DX just got absolutely destroyed by Rated RKO. And I was watching it with my mom, and Filipino moms, Filipinos in general, they're very value oriented, and they really don't want, especially they don't want 6-year-old kids. And I understand, like, they shouldn't have you don't want to have your 6-year-old kid watching this very, like, your 6-year-old kid shouldn't be watching someone getting slammed in the head with a steel chair while he's lying on top of another steel chair on top of the announce table when he's gushing blood, right? That's kind of, I don't think a 6-year-old kid should be watching that, but I did, and it was such a visceral reaction that my mom got up from the couch, went in front of the TV, no remote, and just changed the channel manually. And she turned to me and said, "Don't be watching this stuff. This is too violent. Let's watch something else." And we watched The Simpsons. And
wait. You watched what now?
We watched The Simpsons. It was on Cartoon Network. For some reason, The Simpsons was airing on Cartoon Network in the Philippines on New Year's Eve after we watched this very violent segment regarding a guy getting his head smashed in with a chair on top of another chair, and it changes to this adult cartoon that my mom had no problem watching. So yeah,
because cartoons are obviously for children always.
Exactly, especially cartoons such as The Simpsons. That's how I got.
Yeah,
that's how I got hooked into wrestling, and like.
I have kind of a similar story to that. I was a year before. I was in 2005. I was probably about 6 because I was born in 98. So so I was probably about 6 at that point. And my first show was the 2005 Royal Rumble.
Oh my God!
Yeah, my dad was really big into wrestling. My dad was really big into wrestling back then, and he's the one that got me hooked on it. So he had bought the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. So, you know, going back and watching it years later, I remembered the full card, but until I had rewatched it in full, the Rumble match and the casket match were the only matches I remembered.
So, did 6-year-old you remember this old man prancing his way to the ring, sliding into it, and then just sitting down?
Yeah, and I'm like, because I think that was because that since that was my very first introduction to WWE and wrestling, I had no idea who the hell that was.
Yeah,
I did not realize this was the man running the show.
Yeah,
I just see this. I just see this old man doing like this with this poofy fucking hair, doing like this half power walk, half run, and then slides in and then just falls down, and it's like, what the?
What is this? I was confused. Like when I saw that the first time, I was like, what? What happened here? And then the older I got,
I remember, you had I remember, fucking Benoit, Guerrero, and Hardcore Holly beating up on poor little Daniel Pewter.
Who?
Chris Benoit.
Who?
Mr. Wah. You remember Crispin? You remember Crispin?
Oh, Crispin. Oh, that guy.
Yeah, Crispin.
That guy. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Sorry. The guy was never mentioned on my TV since like something happened in 2007.
I don't know, crazy stuff.
I think we were conditioned to forget about him.
Yeah, but them just beating the crap out of poor little Pewter.
Yeah. For trying to take down Kurt Angle.
Yeah, right. I remember one of the ones that stick out to me the most was when Gene Snitsky almost killed Paul London. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that spot. I don't remember that spot.
So Paul London had come out, and you remember Paul London, right?
Of course.
Like just full speed.
He got inducted recently into the GCW Indie Hall of Fame.
Hell yeah. Love Paul. Paul London is one of my absolute favorites. And this match is a big reason why. I remember he slid into the ring, but he was running so fast and had so much momentum, he slid all the way across the ring and almost slid all the way out to the other side. He was coming in with so much momentum that he damn near slid all the way through the ring to the other side. It was crazy. And then I don't think he was in very long, but Snitsky was in the ring. London was on the apron, and Snitsky was trying to like hit him off the apron, but London kept like ducking him and dodging him and running from side to side. And then Snitsky just catches him with a fucking clothesline. Dude does a full backflip and face plants on the ground. And they give him the stretcher treatment and everything. And people were just floored. They're like, oh my God, this dude's dead.
Killed him, man. Yeah,
Snitsky just killed him. But it wasn't his fault. But it wasn't his fault. Yeah. It's never his fault.
I also remember a very visceral reaction my aunt, she's no longer with us, gave when so there was this segment. It was the Cutting Edge. It was Edge, Orton, and they were feuding with DX at the time. And I think you might remember this. They brought out Ric Flair, and you know Ric Flair.
Yeah.
He was almost lifeless. Me and my aunt were watching this thing.
Yeah, I do remember that because Ric Flair and Roddy Piper were tag champions for a
minute. They were tag champions.
And Rated RKO beat them for the titles.
Yeah, so Edge and Orton, they dragged this almost dead Ric Flair, because I think DX wasn't in the show. And I remember I think it was Orton that hit the
stuff with the McMahons.
Yeah, I think Orton hit the concerto first on Flair, and my aunt just yelled at me, said, "Why are you watching this stuff?" Yeah, needless to say, like Filipino parents, they didn't like. At least
I just realized I'm kind of misremembering certain things because I remember watching some of the Raw episodes leading up to Royal Rumble. I only had Raw. I didn't have the channel that SmackDown was on.
Oh, I think it was UPN, I think?
Yeah, I didn't have UPN. My grandmother had UPN though, so she would
Yeah.
record the shows on VHS tapes, and then she'd come visit every weekend, and then just deliver me stacks of fucking SmackDown tapes. I still have those tapes to this day.
Yeah. Wow. Do they still work?
Yeah, they should.
Oh, VHS. Oh, VHS players
Yeah.
though. Those are gotta be fucking ancient at this point.
Yeah, but man, one of these days I just want to find one of those and just like, hook it up and like just go back and watch it that style for a change, just to, nostalgia. But what I was saying was I'm misremembering because I did catch some of the Raw episodes like leading up to Royal Rumble, but there's only really one moment I remember that had me hooked, and it was
Vince tearing his quads.
No. It was actually. Did you remember the Kane and Snitsky feud? Over Kane
Was
and
it about?
Lita's
Was it
dead
about
baby?
the kid? About the kid?
Yeah,
I remember.
Kane and Lita's dead baby.
I remember they aired the episode where Snitsky kicked the kid.
Yeah, kicked the baby doll into the crowd.
Yeah.
Well, there was one time I don't remember if they were having a match or if they were just fighting, but like they might have just been having like a match, and like they were brawling and they were going all the way up on the stage, and at one point like they're finally like teetering at the very, and this is when they still had like, I guess, the bigger stages. So they were good, I don't know, 5-10 feet.
Yeah.
Above the ground off the stage, and they're like teetering up against the stage, and at one point Kane has Snitsky by the throat at the edge of the stage, and I don't know what he's saying to him, but I just see like the look in this guy's face just screaming at him, and then they just go flying off the stage into like the equipment boxes, and I'm like oh my god. And then I think WrestleMania 21 really sealed the deal for me.
Ooh, that's a good first
WrestleMania. We saw Mania 21 a few months later, and
that's a good one.
That's
a good first WrestleMania.
Really sealed it. So
my first WrestleMania was 23. That was when Sean faced Cena. That's when Sean faced Cena.
That was the big like.
That was really good.
I remember that was the Vince Trump hair versus hair match, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the best part about that was we got all WWE pay-per-views on cable TV for free.
You're shitting me. Really?
Yeah, so there's this channel, channel 51. It's called Jag TV. Not only would they air Raw, SmackDown, they also aired fucking ECW.
Really?
It was a few hours.
Or the WWE?
No, like WWECW.
Okay.
Shit, ECW. But
yeah.
They would air the pay-per-views the day of live. Like live. Like for free. And then they would air it on replay at like 10 p.m. And obviously 7-year-old me wasn't allowed to stay up at 10 p.m. because that was too late. Every summer, every time it was summer break, I would watch. I remember all the pay-per-view cycles. I'd be able to watch WrestleMania, Backlash, Judgment Day, and that was during like the start of Khali's run, and a one-night stand as well when Orton killed RVD.
Oh yeah, that was a 2007 one-night stand, wasn't it?
And also, I got to witness peak Do-Rag Vince.
Oh yeah, Do-Rag
as ECW champion. That was some big cool memories there. Yeah, so
that was
like years progressed, the more I got into it, the more I understood like wrestling wasn't real. Then the more I understood that wrestling was a TV show, and that these people were essentially like acting. That's kind of what got me into acting as well, and that's when I started like watching basically everything that came from your neck of the woods. I started watching all sorts of like sitcoms because I was very addicted to sitcoms. I remember watching the entirety of Friends, seasons 1 to 10, all in like an entire week span.
Wow. Like
nonstop. And I was just so into like American culture and stuff that like the way I'm speaking right now, like this is like natural. It's So like now, whenever like I speak normally to people, I can convince them that I'm not a Filipino.
Yeah, I wouldn't wouldn't believe it if
Yeah, and that's also what got me into the theater acting. So like I'm high school theater trained. I think
Okay,
the
so
best
you were
play.
a theater kid.
Yeah, I am a theater kid, movie kid, like cinephile. I was a cinephile basically, and wrestling was a big catalyst for that. And I think that's sort of that plus my acting, my high school training in theater. I think that's what sort of transitioned into. I guess we're about to get into how I got into this shit.
Because that was
We're
going to
about
be
to
the
get into
follow up.
there. Yeah. So along the way, I met this guy. We're calling him Tom. You know what? I'm gonna say his full name. This guy named Tom Collier. Now, what most people don't know is that I've been friends. I was friends with this guy long before he invited me onto this hobby. Our mutual interest back then was Marvel Comics and Magic the Gathering. I'm sure you're very aware of Magic because Magic the Gathering is big in this country. Like I had no idea it's big in this country.
Yeah,
You
I've
have
heard of it.
people that will pay like a lot of money for a lot of rare cards, and there are tournaments.
People are
and
crazy
shit.
over Magic. People are absolutely crazy over Magic.
And I had no idea that there were even tournaments being done on certain formats on my local malls. I had no idea that this game was big here. So we bonded over that, and we also bonded over wrestling. And I think what sort of attracted me towards him was that every Facebook post that this guy did was kayfabe. Like he's using all the insider terms and shit. It's like, oh, I met this chick and I put her in the crossface, and I used this playlist when I'm on my heel run, and then I use this playlist when I'm on my babyface run. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Why are you talking like you're a part of this shit? And then sometime later, we were talking shit on we were bantering on one of I think this was before WrestleMania 31, something like that. And then he just straight up comments like, yo, there's this thing that I do. Do you mind? I'm going to send you something. See if it's good. It's him.
Look at the little movements there. Just like, I got this.
It's him. So it's him in his college locker room. Like this. Like this. And then he's just talking shit about someone. It's like this. In this angle. Behind him is this locker room. And he's cutting a promo on someone. I completely forgot what he said, but he's cutting a promo on someone. And I think this was very early on when this version of eFeds that we're accustomed to was just starting to find its footing. And he's like, yo, what do you think? I was 15 years old. I didn't fucking know what a fucking good promo was by the standards. I just thought it was cool. Just shit, you're okay. It's all right. And then I watched it back a couple of years later. It was just him just talking about nonsense, and then just a bunch of shit.
That's probably what I'm guessing. A lot of the early stuff really was just kind of people just saying shit. There wasn't really.
Yeah, we were just saying shit.
I get the vibe from the few people that I've gotten really kind of into it with, as far as into it meaning the in-depth history, they all kind of speak a similar tongue that the early years of the video fed stuff was very wild.
There was no formula. There was no standard.
Yeah, there wasn't really anyone, there wasn't really anyone like you've got today.
Yeah, because it was the Wild West, because it was literally just starting. I remember when I was added to CPW, that was the first Fed that I was actively involved in, and Collier was helping me out create a character. It was what is this? It's it's a bunch of wrestling fans that can't really do this actually, but we pretend it's role playing. That's why I found out it's role playing. We're role playing as wrestlers. So it was and then we cut a promo and shit like that. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'm an actor. I think I can do this. Okay, what do I got to do something? Get a camera. Just get a camera. I don't know what I didn't have a good phone at the time, and the closest thing to a camera I got was an old ass Samsung tablet, and my laptop that I had with me since like first year of high school, with the webcam, and literally. The first character that I created was a guy wearing like I wanted to like disguise my face. It got destroyed now. It was like a flash painted face mask or eye mask, and I took 2 action figures with me, and I would talk to them.
Okay.
And pretend like my action figures were like my. It was essentially like first rendition of Mankind, but also like with a twist of Bray Wyatt, because I was speaking ominously and shit like that.
So you were very much like more of like a character.
Yeah, I was more of a character.
Then you were more of a character than one of the shit talkers.
I was more of a character. Yeah. Like and then that. I did like one take on it, and then I realized it wasn't really what I was looking for. And then Tom added me to CPW, Championship Promo Wrestling, one of the pioneer. I'll say it. It's the pioneer. It's the original of what the modern day video e-fed is like. Because that's where it all started, at least for me, basically. And I was seeing all these people, and they were so like 2015 standards. They were so good. Like they were able to like stand their camera, and they were speaking so well, and like, oh shit, they had like personality. Like that's what I wanted. I wanted to have a personality, not just be like a guy that talks on the camera. I want to have a personality. It's like, okay, what can I do to take this character differently? So the first guy that I faced in CPW was a guy named Cody Webb, and his gimmick is essentially he's an outlaw. He talks like an outlaw. He dresses like an outlaw, and his moveset is reflective of that of an outlaw. So
when you say outlaw, you mean like Wild West outlaw, like cowboy?
Yeah.
Or what?
He literally called himself the Outlaw, Cody Webb. Mm-hmm. And at that time, he was the Intercontinental Champion, the CPW Intercontinental Champion. And for some ungodly reason, Tom had some pull and had him face me in my first match ever.
Okay.
And I saw how this guy was promoting, and obviously, like, he's a champion there. So I had to do something, right? Mm-hmm. So I was watching. This was when I was like into sort of like my TNA phase, because I was slowly drifting away. I was slowly drifting away from WWE because I was sort of getting jaded from the product because I thought it was so hokey and so not my style as I got older.
I went through the same thing, bro. Same thing.
And what sort of drew me was Sting, but not just any Sting. This was Joker Sting.
Yes.
And I was binging a bunch of Joker Sting stuff, and I'm like,
and that's such a fun run to binge.
Yeah. A lot of people don't like that gimmick. I don't know why. It's my favorite rendition of Sting.
Cool. It was so different. Like Sting was always like Sting is like he is one of the most fascinating people to watch because he's had so many like really interesting character changes over his career. You know, he started, had the whole like Surfer Sting look, the traditional baby face. Then he went as sort of like the anti-hero Crow Sting and was all like serious and brooding.
Fighting the NWO.
Then like, kind of that the
don't turn your back on the wolf pack.
wolf pack. And then you kind of the vibe I got from the majority of his TNA run was just kind of that grizzled veteran figure, and then Joker Sting happened.
Yeah,
completely changed shit. And
I remember, I vividly remember the segment that sort of clicked. It's like, shit, I can do that. Was when he had a match against Mr. Anderson, Anderson was on the ramp. He was about to do his thing, and then Sting comes out, and his paint is completely fucking messed up. And then he grabs the mic from Anderson, then he just yells like, "Oh!"
Yes,
and
I remember that because Anderson sees her doing his whole from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Mr. Anderson. Fucking beautiful, love it.
That's what hooked us. Like, oh shit! I'm like, oh shit! I gotta do that. So I scrambled around my basement trying to find whatever sort of face paint I could get, and then I was like, fuck it, whatever. I got like a mixture of colors. And I just kept painting. I kept painting my face, whatever, to make me look like the most insane dude possible. And then this is how bad it was. I didn't have a camera, so I used my laptop webcam, and this was the thing. And I didn't use like my actual, like this was what I consider like, because like my thought process was like, shit, they're not going to hear me if I don't have like a proper microphone. That the speakers probably won't pick that up. I need to use an actual microphone. So I wear this. I have the get up, and I just yelled at the camera. All I did was just yell and scream at the camera and just imitate whatever sort of tropes I got from binging Joker Sting, and people lost their fucking minds.
Oh yeah,
I got the win. It worked. I beat him by popular vote, whatever the fuck that means. Wow. I beat him, non-title. Then we faced again for the title. I beat him again, and then I had this like little mini run. So I called myself the Marksman because I wanted to have a cool name. So yeah, so I called myself the Marksman, and it's essentially what it was. The Marksman was essentially my version of Joker Sting. That was my first E-Fed gimmick ever.
Nice.
Yeah, big shout out to Cody Webb. That without him, that I wouldn't be here. Without that guy,
I don't know why, but that name sounds vaguely familiar for some reason. I don't know why, but I feel like I've heard that name somewhere before.
Because like we'll get to like we'll get to somewhere, because like I was supposed to do it at IW, but you know we'll get there. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so I had the success in CPW. I had obviously it was comp at the time, you know, because like early video e-feds, like you hear the word predetermined, you're probably gonna get blacklisted. That's how anti storyline driven early e-feds were. Do you want to know what the reasoning for it was? It's favoritism. People like if you were a part of a predetermined fed, none of your wins were quote unquote earned, or none of your championships felt earned. So apparently in their minds, if you scored a perfect 10, you're world championship material. That's how people would decide if you're world championship material or not, is if you had a high enough score against like the best of the best, quote unquote, instead of not telling the story. So, but that's just how it was. That's just how it was back then. It was just a mixture of both competitive and like
wrestling role play that didn't even follow the like actual like concept of how wrestling behind the scenes actually works.
There were feds that tried to do that tried to mix,
but it just was very frowned upon, right?
Yeah, no, they were. So the compromise was you mixed in storylines while also maintaining the competitive aspect of it. So basically, it's like the story goes week by week. So it's like the next part of the story happens whether this guy wins or this guy loses. It just all depends on whether this guy wins or this guy loses. Okay. Nothing was long term. It was always week by week. That was the compromise, and I think that was the standard, at least from 2015 to 2016. Because you had feds like BST, IPW. Well, again, one of the these are now like OG feds I'm talking about. I think like the only people that will understand this is Mullins, because he's one of the only people besides me that were a part of that time that is still actively doing this to this day. So if Mullins ever watches this, he's probably gonna take a trip down memory lane or some shit like that. TOPW, UPW, and then like you have people like you had people back then like Matt Minnick. I'm sure you know who fucking Matt Minnick was.
Yeah. I think he was kind of getting. I think he was kind of going as I was coming. There was a lot of people that like I saw at the very tail end of their runs, and I think he was one of them.
Yeah, like very early on, it was Matt Minnick, Prince Havoc, Brian Carr, not PWO Brian Carr, like a BRI Canadian Brian Carr is what we call him now.
Canadian
like
Brian.
Collier, yeah, Mullins. Even back then, like the promo style that you see from Mullins today, it's still this. He hasn't changed. It's still the same promo style from what he had back then.
He's what I like to say about Mullins. He's just a simple country boy.
Mullins, yeah,
and
Brett Litke,
but one of my favorite things. I gotta divert here. One of my favorite things a few months back. I was just like scrolling the IW page once, and I saw this Mullins promo, and I clipped this moment in particular and it's just lived with me forever. He's just like going on talking about how I think the vibe he was trying to go with was he was, trying to play up the common man, right? The whole common man shit, I guess. And he's just going on and he's like, no, I'm just a simple kind of guy. I'm just a simple country boy. And I love food. With the
I think that was the start of. I think I wasn't back yet at that time. I think I was still. I was still trying to find peace with my. We'll get there. Don't worry about it. But
yeah.
Like those types of early
just a wee bit.
Yeah, those types of early feds, and then like one of the ones that I think will stand out to me the most is this fed called Titans of Promo Wrestling, TOPW. It was ran by Shikuma. Well, we're not that close anymore because I think he stopped talking to me once I became loyal to IW. He's one of the many anti-IW detractors, shit like that. Like,
gotcha.
One of the big attractions that I think the TOPW was the fact that Shikuma is actually in the wrestling business. So like he's not only a super fan, but he also has these connections. And I think the biggest connection that we had at the time was, I think you'll appreciate this more than most other people, was that we had Rick Knox come in and do a couple of stuff for us.
Oh yeah.
PWG and AEW referee Rick Knox, and
wow.
Yeah, and
Rick fucking Knox.
Yeah, so that guy Rick Knox, and he joined the community, and he was actually really appreciative of it, and also like not only Rick Knox, I think the biggest one that we got was we had Trevor Murdoch come in and be a part of an event match for us. Yeah, he faced this guy named Walter Main, and Shanti Shakuma actually had. He pulled me into a group chat with Trevor Murdoch, and he basically pulled in like a couple of people to help explain to Trevor Murdoch what it is exactly that we do here.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that.
We had to explain to Trevor Murdoch what EFED was. It was like, what am I doing in my life to where I'm in a Facebook group chat explaining to fucking former WWE World Tag Team Champion and future NWA World Champion Trevor Murdoch about what the fuck is that we do here?
Yeah, what is life?
I was 16 years old. I was 16 years old at that time. I think that was like the peak of my wrestling fandom. Was like, shit, I get to talk to Rick Knox and Trevor Murdoch.
Hell yeah.
Peak of my fandom at that time. Yeah. That was the early days. It was basically like the Wild West. There was really like no standards set for video feds at the time. It was the Wild West. It was like whatever rules people tried to set that they thought were considered fair, people just copied and followed. Like people would say like the wildest shit, like the wildest shit. Like you had no idea.
When would you say the shift started between like the heavy, like random shit talk and the more like story driven stuff, like big, like what we kind of have more of now? Because when I first started breaking into video, was in like mid 2018, really. I had like a short stint on video in like 2017, but that was only like a month. But like 2018 was when I really started getting into it big, and that's when you had some. There was a lot of like there was still a good chunk of like the heavy shit talkers, but I feel like it was kind of on its last legs of that era and into a new era.
I think for me, I started noticing like the standards being set mainly when people started learning about what IW was. Because
a lot of roads seem to go back there, doesn't it?
Yeah, because like, I mean, I think now we can sort of get into it. Like, I personally feel like IW was the first Fed of its kind, as like this purely storyline driven Fed that in like the early days of it was so frowned upon, and like it took me a minute to sort of understand like fucking pro wrestling's predetermined. Like fucking WWE picks their winners 6 months in advance. Like they know what they have like a long-term game plan. Why can't we do that here?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. It's like, the sort of stand for behind the scenes wrestling is that, card is subject to change, but a lot of stuff is planned out months ahead of time.
Exactly. So it's not about like who wins or loses.
Yeah,
sure,
it's just
like,
about putting on a show.
Yeah, not only that, it's about telling a story.
Yeah, telling a story, putting on a show, and having fun.
Yeah, so like I think this was the end of 2016, and I was getting burned. I was getting tired already because I was in 2 different feds, and I was facing the same guy in 2 different feds. I think it was the exact same match as well. And I was getting tired. And I was getting tired of formula. It's like, well, shit talk this way. But I was very limited. Like even now, I was very limited to what I can do creatively, because at that time there was like 5 different people living in the house, same as me. I can't just take my tablet and go downstairs and yell at the camera, because people are gonna come outside and shush me mid-recording and take me off my vibe. So I didn't want to do that because I was kind of embarrassed enough already that people were knowing that I was doing this as a hobby, and I just wanted something different. I was just sick of promo, get score, that determines your direction. I didn't want that. I wanted something different.
And that's when IW came into the picture.
That's when IW came into play. Like, were you aware of Legion?
Yes.
The big
I was I never he was one of the ones I never did anything with, but I had seen him around. I had watched some of the stuff, and I'm like, hey, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I one of the big pioneers of modern of what a modern video e-feder should be like, because I think he was one of the first people that valued production onto his work and valued editing, because his shit would be edited and like he'd have like background music and stuff. At that time, no one was really doing it because nobody knew how to. Nobody had like nobody knew how to fucking do that shit. It was him and one other person that was like that. I think like Legion figured it out first before everyone else just followed. And he transitioned from competitive feds to storyline feds. And I was in IW. And at that time he saw something in me, I guess, and he brought me into the group, and he went out of his way to message me like, hey man, I think you're really gonna enjoy it here. It's not judged, there's no judges, it's pure storyline based, no pressure on anybody, just go out there, have fun. And I got into the group. The first promo I saw out of IW was like the aftermath of Adam Cage cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase to become the IW World Heavyweight Champion. And the first promo I ever saw was Adam Cage celebrating his IW World Championship victory. I was December 2016, and I saw that. I'm like, like, who is this guy? I've never seen this guy before. And then that's when the whole can of worms opened up. That's when I saw all these unique characters.
Mind blown. It's like that
Mind
gif of
blown.
the guy with the gif of the guy that's going like, Pwah!
Yeah. So my mind was
that guy.
Who are these people? And these guys were good.
Yeah,
they were
it's kind of crazy. Like hearing this is like our stories are actually pretty similar. Because when I had like sort of my brief video run in 2017, me and some friends had this group called SWA, Star Wrestling Association, and we had 6 people. We when it started, there was this other fed that I don't remember what it was called, but there was this fed that had come up and like offered to do like sort of like a little partner thing with us. So they had like brought all of their roster, and so like we had barely been started for a couple days and had like over 100 people on the page.
Jesus Christ.
And then our very first card, we pissed them all off and they all left that on that very first card.
Because they all lost.
Well, what happened was, so the story with that is there was this guy who was having it was a main event, and there was this one guy who was part of the other show versus someone that I don't remember who brought this girl in, but she was really good. She is someone who, if she would have stuck around, she would have been big. I believe she was going. I think I don't remember. I think her character name was like Nicole Mackley or something like that.
This was a woman.
Yeah, and she was good.
Oh man!
But here's the thing. So because I think one of the things we had done before it even started was we had like people. One of the things that we were personally requesting roster members do was, before anything else, post a promo and introduce yourself to us. Show us what you got. Before we did anything, before we even set anything up, everyone had to do at least one promo. So I know we saw her, and we're like, holy shit, this chick is like main event tier. And the first card we only had like 3 match cards. So it was this girl, it was Nicole versus this other guy, Hollywood Cream was his name, and he was pretty good too.
Shit.
So I'm like I was looking for, does that name ring a bell to you? Your reaction to that, did you recognize that name or something?
No, Hollywood Cream. That's a very unique
interesting name, right?
Very interesting name.
Good too. He was pretty good too. Like he almost had this like Cat Williams like energy to him, you know? He was really fascinating to watch, and I was really looking forward to it. And then I remember at one point he did one of those things where, you know, you're promoing against a girl and you make a bunch of remarks and stuff.
He was one of those people.
Well, here's the thing. This is where it takes a turn. She was 15.
Oh, so she was us.
Yeah, she was a fucking kid. And this guy's making these really just very like raunchy comments about this
stuff that probably would not be accepted. Well, stuff that probably would pass for today's standards. But
yeah, so I remember me and the guy who were judging that match specifically went to him and was like, "Hey man, nothing personal, you know, we're not like trying to start shit, but just so you know, this chick is underage and you're saying some really rough shit. Maybe tone it down a bit." And he got pissed. He's like, "Why the fuck y'all got fucking kids in this page, man? What the fuck? This is bullshit." So then he left, and then everyone else left with him. So then we only lasted like 3 shows. We only did like 3 shows with like a 5 or 6 person roster. I ended up having to start doing like, I was only going to be like a judge, but I ended up like competing as well.
Participating. So, oh man, that's how you know it's rough.
Yeah. So for a good few years, actually, fun fact, for a good few years until I think Agon, I was technically undefeated in comp. Because I think I won every match in SWA I was a part of. Although one of them was a no-show. One of them was no-show, so kind of on a curve, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, going from being in a fed with like where you're often facing the same people every card, and then one day I had taken a long break from video fed and I was just doing written feds for months. With one of the other, once SWA fell apart, me and one of the other guys who was in charge of SWA, he told me about this written fed he was doing called AXW, Anonymous Extreme Wrestling.
Anonymous.
So I got in
wow.
there, I came up, and it had the whole anonymous thing too. Like it had like, you know, the Guy Fawkes mask and everything. It played that up, and it was very like underground, grungy type, really cool stuff. Actually, it was a fun spot. So I came up with this like completely different character from the one I was doing. The character I was doing in SWA was I used the name Arthur Price, but it was very much TJ Blair. The character I was doing in AXW was completely different. It was like this cruiserweight, high flyer, rock star type gimmick. And it went for a while, but then I got tired of writing. So then I'm like, you know what? I want to try to do videos again because, you know, I missed cutting promos. So I remember I think it was the eFed Central page. When that was a thing.
eFed Central, Jesus.
Yeah, that's a throwback, right? And I'd been like, is there any like video feds out there that are looking for anyone? Because I miss doing like promos. And, you know, a few people had messaged me. I can't remember all of them, but for some reason, the one that stuck out to me was a guy by the name of Justin Klein.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
That's another OG.
Yeah, and he's the one that brought me in, and kind of like you, like get in here and you see like all these like so many different people, and it's like just crazy talents just left. I'm like, holy shit! And then the first thing I do when I get into IW is work a fucking 3-match program with Jack Arson.
I mean, looking back at it at that time.
And you know, I don't mean to say that to sound like it's a dig, because you know we know that guy had his issues, but when he was on and he was good. And
yeah,
he had
exactly.
and I had some of my best early matches with him. Like those, like the third match, we had a best of 3 series. The third match was a last man standing, and that was the match that got people like, you know, Dyer and Nick looking at me. So yeah, he did kind of play a part. I don't know whatever happened to him, but yeah, our stories are very much similar.
Yeah.
I think.
So, yeah, that's
at least up to this
like,
point.
Yeah, so like I started seeing guys like Pitbull, IW Legend, James Park. Oh my, there's so much stuff that I'm gonna discuss about James Park later, of how much that guy has meant so much to me, both on a professional and a personal level. So we'll park him there for now. Adam Cage, yeah, Adam Cage, and then as I got my foot into like the gas and stuff, that's when I met guys like that's why I started talking to, like, when Legion introduced me to David and Keith, and David was very, at least when I first met him, he was very open about what IW is, about what the process is about. But Keith was the one that really sold me in on the idea. Keith was the one that sort of like helped me fully understand what the difference between IW was compared to everyone else. And so there were 2 brands, Alpha, Omega. I was brought on to Omega because even back then, Omega was just the farming system for Alpha. That's just what it was. Like, you weren't really considered elite till you were an Alpha. That's just what it was. And I got in there. I cut the first promo I did, which was I walked into that room over there. You can't see, but I walked in my old room over there, and I walked in. I wore my college rain jacket, and I sold the show like something like, "Damn, this locker room smells like balls." And I started like putting Legion over, and I started saying like all this bunch of different stuff, and it got a big reaction. I got a lot of reactions, and I got a lot of compliments, and that's when Keith and David were messaging me like, "Damn, you're good. Why don't you come over to Omega and like really own your craft?" And I was supposed to go on this big run on Omega. Keith was telling me that I was supposed to be booked as Omega's Goldberg because apparently my style was so different compared to everyone else. I think it's just because I was able, because like the older I got, the more I was able to sort of adjust my voice to where I could speak loudly, but not necessarily yell.
Right. Yeah.
So I was able to project my voice.
That's a fun trick once you learn how to do it.
Yeah. So like I was able to project my voice to where I could speak so confidently and aggressively, and that came across really well across my stuff. And I was supposed to be booked really well until David came. It's like, nah, you're better than all this. Come on over to Alpha. You'll be part of this tag team tournament to crown the first tag team champions. And I was teamed up with Chris Connolly. We were, I forgot what our team name was, but we were originally slated to win the tag. I was supposed to be the first Alpha Tag Team champions with Chris Connolly.
Really? Oh yeah.
Until David messaged me like, "Do you want to be part of the administration?" Which is their version of the corporation.
I was administration was still a thing when I came in. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. And he told me like, "You want to be part of the administration? You're good enough. Be part of the administration." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" I'm in with the boss. So this will probably give me good opportunities. And then the more I started seeing guys like Cody Fox, Nappy, Legion, Jack Arson, and the House of Wolves, Carnage, Zach, Deacon. He was still going by Deacon at that time. And Draven. When those guys started coming in, it just opened up.
The game fucking changed. Those guys, like that kind of list of people. Yeah. Specifically, like the ones that kind of stick out to me more than anything are your Legions, your Arsons, your Wolves. Those guys are like kind of one of those just like.
I think those guys completely opened the floodgates. And it's like once they came into IW, and once they like saw that not only because the Wolves, these guys they're shooters. Like they want to come at you. They'll come at you. And then
I'll tell you, like one of my first big matches on Alpha was with Zach, and he showed no fucking mercy to me.
Exactly.
He showed me no fucking mercy, but I gave it right the fuck back to him.
Yeah, and that's what convinced them to stay was the fact that these guys were keeping up with them and giving them back full in kind, and that's what gives shit. This place is legit. Let's stay here. And then once word started getting out that hey, this is where guys like Legion and the Wolves are playing and Jack Arson's playing, that's when the buzz started coming in, and that's when the floodgates opened, and that's when it really got big. And I think that's what sort of started the process of okay, this is what an EFED should be like.
Yeah.
And I think it was in that era. I think that's what sort of like solidified IW is like, okay, this is the standard for what an EFED should be like. If your EFED is half as good as what IW is presenting itself to be, don't bother creating the Fed because it's not going to be able to live up to the standards and quality and star power of what early IW was, at least to me, because nobody was doing it in the way that IW was. Not a single Fed that I was a part of before I came to IW was doing it the way IW was. It was.
I remember.
Free. I felt free.
Yeah, because one of the things I remember whenever I was looking, whenever I started actively looking for a video place to join, I was specifically looking for something that kind of mirrored the format we were looking for with SWA, and IW minus one thing pretty much checked off all the boxes. The only thing IW did not have that SWA had was judging.
Yeah.
We did judging in SWA. IW didn't. I'm like, hey, you know, like all of this is still like pretty spot on. This sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. Just kind of, you know.
And that's what won me over. That's what won me over is the fact that no one was judging. There's no fucking bullshit scores that determines who wins or loses a match. Do you know what determines a winner or loser of the match? The story.
Yeah.
That's it. If the story determines that this guy should win, this guy should win. And also, obviously, of course, you had to work. And like, it's one of the many misconceptions people had at the time. It's like, oh, you're in a predetermined fed, which means people aren't going to work as hard because they're not going to be scored. Wrong.
We're fucking wrong. Yes.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Especially since it's predetermined. Your number one priority is to tell a story. And my God, people were promoting their asses off because they wanted to tell a story. They were promoting better than most people were just shit talking. If people were just in the competitive fed nature were just shit talking, these guys, even back then, like even when you came in, they were cutting wrestling promos.
Yeah.
Because they were telling a story. And that's what won me over. Was people were telling a story. They weren't talking shit. They were talking shit with substance. That's what won me over. And I think even to this day, people still don't understand that. It's kind of sad.
A little bit. Yeah, I remember when I was for like the first couple years of me being in IW, like we didn't know each other. We didn't like interact at all. I remember I had come in, I had done a few months in Delta on like the off season. And then when the seasons jump up, they fucking David booted me straight to fucking Alpha and did Rapture with Carnage and the Saints, did Filth, which that was like a fucking crazy thing that has really set a lot of shit in course for me just to this day, is the Filth connection with all those guys. And then I think it was like right at the end of 2019 into 2020 is when I had enough of the shit on Alpha and said, I want to fucking change. I took a break. I took a few months off and then was like, I went to David and was like, you know, I'm good to come back. I don't want to go to Alpha though. Cause in my opinion, there was like, I was kind of in that pattern of kind of like
lost in the shuffle.
Well, not so much lost in the shuffle, just doing the same shit over and over again. It felt like like I was just kind of in a loop, and I wanted to change it up. And I was asked, "You want to go to Omega or do you want to go to Delta?" And I thought back to I looked at both rosters. I'll be honest with you, my first pick was actually going to be Delta. I didn't know anybody on Omega. I knew everybody on Delta, though. Yeah. Rodney was booking Delta at the time.
Yeah, there you go. I was about to ask. Rodney
was booking Delta at the time. I love that man to death. I trust him with everything I do. Anytime he is involved creatively, I'm like, you're my dude. I trust you. You know, you get me. And then, you know, you had so many people, like Delta was stacked. So I said,
I think this was when Mikey P was Delta champion going, and
I don't remember who the champion was at the time. Yeah, but I remember like McLean was there, Carnage was there, Onions was there, Nick Dyer, Kelly Steen. Delta was stacked. And like, I want to go there because, you know, there's a lot of people I have worked with, but there's still some really good people I haven't. And they're like if we put you on Delta, it's going to be way too fucking lopsided. I think I might be making that last sentence up. I don't remember why they told me I couldn't go to Delta. I think he said the roster was full. There wasn't any room for me.
Probably.
But I want to make myself sound good, you know? So I'm like, okay, then I guess only options Omega. And then that's when that's when this happened.
Yeah. Funny story about how
started.
a funny story about how I got that position actually. So I was like fully competing and only in IW because there was no other place outside that interested me as much as IW was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at that time, not only was I a little bit burnt out from it, from like competing in general, but B, it was like there was no time. There was no time or commitment for me to do stuff because I couldn't. There was no freedom because there were so many people living here that I was afraid that I would record downstairs, and again, I'd be interrupted mid promo and being told to shut the fuck up. So I couldn't do the things that I felt like I could give out creatively, and I wanted a break initially. And that's why I started shifting into writing matches.
Mm-hmm.
And David asked me, like, yo, can you write like one match? And I wrote like a 3 pages worth in Microsoft Word for one match. And I gave it to David, like, holy shit, this is good. Keep it going.
Same fucking thing happened with me. I remember the very first match I wrote on Alpha was well, I remember the first 2 matches I wrote. I think the first match I wrote was a tag match. It was Nick Harrison and Kelly Steen versus Australia and Jade Diamond. But then later on that week, Dan Ness hit me up and was like, hey, yo, can you give me some help with this match I'm working on? I can't get a vibe for it. And I want to see if you can help me. So I do. I'm like, okay, what's the match? Nick White versus Thomas Austin for the Alpha Championship. And I wrote that whole fucking match.
That's pretty similar.
And from that point forward, me and Dan Ness pretty much exclusively wrote Alpha by ourselves every week for like 6 months with like 12 match cards. 12 match cards. We were writing, me and him, like separately, we're writing 6 matches a week. I think eventually we got Applin in there to kind of help us out because
pretty much that's how it was because me and Keith were very close. Like even to this day, we're very. I think besides like there's like 3 other people that I would consider besides Keith to be my best friend in this entire hobby. That guy helped me through basically everything involving IW, both on camera, and he taught me everything that I knew behind the camera, writing and booking. So I think at this point, I was burnt out from competing, and I was Keith's go-to writer because we just clicked. We just clicked. I know what he wants in terms of how a match should be written, and I know what he wants in terms of how a direction story should go. And so we were going back and forth about all this writing stuff, and until one day, Keith couldn't post a card. I think he was busy at work, and I was messaging him, and I was like, bro, let me post the card. Just give me the card, let me post it, and I'll make it look nice. And like that, he gave me the card, and I posted it on an alternate account, which is now my Anton Garcia account. And Keith just messaged me like, dude, just help me book the fucking show. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, just help me book the fucking show. But everything that you do has to go through me. Sure. Where do I start? And he made me an admin on the page, and by late 2019 onwards, me and Keith were running the show solely. He and I, especially. And I know what you're probably going to ask. I know what we're probably about to get into.
There was a few things before that.
Okay.
Because you remember, I had initially come into Omega and I wanted to do something different.
Arthur Price.
I came in I wanted to do like different name and like try to do different, and it failed miserably.
Arthur Price. I remember because you came in and you wanted to do Arthur
I was
Price.
sick of the Blair thing. I wanted to go because I liked that name more, and to an extent, I still do have a fondness in my heart for that name originally. Because I just think it sounds so much cooler. But it just didn't work. I don't know why. I don't really know why I changed from that to TJ Blair in the first place.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I don't know why I just didn't keep that name, but yeah, tried something different. It didn't work, and then like I don't know, something happened, and I had one of several fucking mental breakdowns, and then took the rest of that year off.
Yeah, because you were slotted into a feud with then Omega World Champion Carl Jenkins, Chuck Myers, Killjoy.
Yeah,
you were set for a big run. I know Keith and I were talking very highly of you. Even back then, we were talking very highly of you, and I knew because Carl, you weren't slated to win because that belt was always going to go back to Dyer to Bubba. That belt was like the end game was always Bubba, but we wanted to put you into that slot because you were good. We wanted to give you that opportunity, and I knew you talked to me a little bit about it, and then that's when Keith would tell me that the guy's going through some stuff. Let's leave him out of it for now until 100%.
Yeah, because I remember I did something that I don't normally do. I remember I was like just so fucking frazzled at this specific moment. I just went live on the page and said, "Hey y'all, I can't fuck with this shit right now. I am fucked up. I'm out."
Yeah, I remember.
And people just started messaging me fucking like crazy, like, "Yo, what the fuck's going on?" Like, I think people thought I was gonna go like, I don't know, like go like or something.
Yeah,
but
it was concerning. It was legitimately concerning.
Yeah. So I took the rest of that year off, and then I think it was like either I had come back for like a little bit in one of the off-season pages. I think I might have come in to do a little bit in Underground.
It was probably Underground or Promo Lucha.
Yeah, it would have been Underground. I didn't do anything in Promo Lucha, so I did a little bit in Underground with Nick, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm in a good spot again. And now. You're someone who has some history or some stories in the eFed community that you would like to talk about on a platform, well, I've got the place for you right here on the Unplugged podcast. Just hit me up and we will schedule a show just for you. As always, thank you for watching and listening, and I will talk to all of you later on.